What's going on, everybody? My name is Terminus, and today we're gonna talk about Spice and Wolf episode 5. I really liked the episode. It certainly it was somewhat of a transitional episode, but at the same time, as with all the episodes so far, and as with probably most of the episodes that we will be seeing, we actually have very significant, important points of relationship building, character development, right? Even plot development that's going on. We're talking, we're making plans, we're understanding the world better and better as we make our way through, which is a very cool thing because in this world in general, right, it's really cool how we do have the light, right, going up in this shot, and we do have Holo on the one hand and the other person hooded on the other hand, kind of in darkness, right? We're not privy to what the situation and the exchange is. We are only seeing the general atmosphere of it, right? The light, the warmth, it's away from us. We are in the cold and in the dark. As we are ourselves, right? The audience is also in the dark, which is a very interesting parallel. And we do see the shock on Holo's face. And then we're going into the intro. Very cool, I think, that in every one of these episodes, we are getting plot development, but it's often kind of I do feel, and I think that's something we can be prepared for. It's a story that has a foreseeable conclusion, right? That has a conclusion that maybe we won't be able to tell how it's gonna end, but we will at the very least be able to tell, okay, it's going to end in a couple of episodes, and we know there's going to be some kind of conclusion, and we know probably, at least in most cases, there might be actually where this is not the case, but in most cases, Holo and Lawrence will be back together, and we will be somewhere in here, right? Maybe that also opens up like the possibility for later on having arcs or possibilities where the two of them are not together, where they actually have to trust one another and be like, trust one another that the other one is taking care of themselves and will be back for them, right? As we have in this episode, where we do have the big problem that obviously all of this trading is going on and the scheming and whatnot, and we're trying to find a way to get into a position where we can actually propose to our merchant chief here an action that will be profitable for his company, as well as save Holo from these people who have confined her. Although I'm pretty sure that she probably would have been able to free herself to a degree. Although I don't, I think this would have definitely been the case. Although, I think she gave him the wheat bundle, so she can't actually chew it and become the wolf. So that might be one thing that's keeping her from changing forms and whatnot. Although an offering of blood could also make that achieve that. Although I don't know if it's actually a willing offer. In that case, it could be problematic again. But we do have the letter, and we talk about it. I do love some of the angles that we're using here, right, to make the shot interesting. Not only do we face, like, we are obviously facing Lawrence, and then we're facing, I forgot his name, our guy here. And we're talking back and forth, we're looking at the ladder, but we're also having these interesting shots, right, from the ground up, looking at both of them, kind of at a weird angle, right? And that's kind of piquing the interest of you as a viewer, but also it's very interesting to note that at the very least one of them is always in the shot. There's no shot that's kind of just showing the scenery and whatnot, because we're not describing the scenery. We're actually talking, the two of us, right? This is a collaborative effort of finding out what we can do, because our friend here is he is very willing to help, but obviously he can't let his personal emotions and his empathy with Lawrence get in the way, because he is in his official position as the branch leader of this trading company, and he has to actually make the decisions that are best for the business and doesn't run himself and his compatriots out of business immediately. And he gains to make huge losses here. And now we actually very interesting. I said it just now, we're always showing the two of them, and now we're zooming out to the town while we are actually talking about that we can't hide anywhere here in the town. And we do have a very nice old painting style this display of the town. We saw it before earlier when we saw it in the light, right, during the daytime. Now we see it during the nighttime in the moonlight, and it's great, right? I do love these landscape shots that just show how towns back in these days actually looked, right? How they were made up and what you can make out, right? You can make out like the little like I don't know, like sea in the middle here that's probably been maybe it's a bath or whatever. We do have the little river split here where the bigger river is going on to the one side, and then we do have like a channel kind of going upstream here. Might be leading to other towns or townships or whatnot, to enable that trading. And I'm probably, like, I assume that the harbor is probably going to be around that that triangle, that delta here. We do have like the outskirts that you see are less populated, like less full of houses and whatnot. We have a lot of watchtowers throughout the city. Obviously in the middle we already do see the centralized architecture where we can make out the bigger buildings, right? The merchant trade guild buildings that are already being like maybe 2 or 3 levels higher than the normal houses are that we can see. And we already see that development that later on, especially in America, not as much in Europe, but especially in America, but also some cities in Europe, for example, Frankfurt, you can definitely see that there's like skyscrapers and building up instead of using the wide area, because you don't have that much building area left, and you do want to centralize the, right? There's a lot of companies and very very important businessmen that want to center themselves in the heart of the city, being close to their rivals and all of that, right? All of that jazz. There's a lot of considerations going into that, but that has been the case even back then. Yeah, we do have the problem the church has a lot of connections, right? They don't just exist as an isolated entity in this town. If she's reported to the church, or if she flees and they report her somewhere else, right? Or word gets out to another town, they can't access any town anymore, because the church in these times, even though it starts to wane in its influence, is still very, very powerful, right? It is just past the peak of its power, where they had maximum connections, maximum, like, say in everything. The church has about as much, in some areas maybe, and in some cases, situations, maybe even more power than like a state owner, right? A landowner, a king or whatever you want to, or a lord of a certain like region. And that is very scary if you think about like having Holo in their confinement so they can possibly report it, and they have to think really hard and kind of make some assumptions about how these humans, right, the opposite of you, would behave in certain situations. And this is where Lawrence's intuition comes in, and also his ability to kind of decide, is this a risk I'm willing to take? Are the odds in my favor? Is this something I can sell also to my to this merchant guild leader, so that it gives him the necessary security for his company to be like, okay, we can manage it, we can actually handle that. It is risky, but we can actually do it. And I want to help you anyway, but I need a reason to. And this is how we're negotiating. We're negotiating this piece out, right? We're trying to get this plan going, because both of them want to actually do something about this, right? But our guild leader here, or our branch leader here, is putting his responsibility of his job above his personal feelings, and he's saying, Lawrence, give me something I can deal with. And we're making this plan, right? The silver coins are already bought, but the fact that they sent this threat and didn't immediately report it suggests that they might want to have leverage, right? Might want to gain an advantage. If they already had the coins, they would be doing the thing like doing the deal with the king and getting their privileges that they get in exchange for giving them that large sum, so they can exchange it for the less valuable coins, right? Mint it down and right, dilute the value of the actual coin. So the king actually is in a position of, I have to give you something in order to do that, because in this case, the merchant guild found out and they coordinated to get as many silver coins as possible, as many as they would need to actually have proper leverage on it. And then they would be going to the king, would be like, I got a business proposal for you, right? I'll give you all of these if you give me the rights to to do certain things with state business, right? Be involved in there, because this is a huge guarantee for the company to actually make business, because it is not reliant on private business between different merchants and business owners. It is reliant on the state, which the state is always a little bit something more secure, because the state is more or less managing the people, and the people are kind of paying their taxes, right? And the state gets financed by that, rather than having to make business on their own and actually having to make profit in every endeavor they have. So if you can get in on state business, it's always very profitable. That's also the reason why in these days, right, there's been so many businesses, especially in the US, for example, who have been having government contracts, right, and getting in there. And if you have a government contract that is very lucrative, the government will most of the time pay on time, right? There's no risk there. There's no risk that you don't have to sell anything to anyone. You're just producing these things and developing these things for the state. So it's been that way since before that, right? And our plan is, okay, we go in, we snatch that thing away from them, because we were going to do that anyway, right? But we're going to do it right now before they can actually report or do anything, and that's why we need the rescue operation. And then we're going to tell them, look, we're going to give you all of these rights, right, in agreement with the king, but you need to pay us big time. And this is how we don't make losses, how we make a huge profit. Even though, to be fair, we would probably making a bigger and a more secure profit if we would keep it for ourselves and just leave Holo to quote unquote die, right? But then you do have the problem that the company could at the same time be like, look, this company, they were doing business with this guy who was harboring this like unholy deity. And then you have the problem that the church is going to weigh in on that and be on the, like, maybe even run them out of business, because the church has a certain authority to do that, to actually prosecute, especially in matters of like faith and religion and whatnot. State and church were very tied together, and church had authorities that even the state in some cases didn't have. So this is very dangerous, that you could be ran out of business. So you need to make them an offering and be like, okay, we're going to give you what you want, but you're going to have to be okay with not reporting us, right? Giving us back what we need, right? Holo in this case. And giving us a large sum of money. It's still a profit for both companies, right? And a profit for both companies, in my opinion, is probably better, because then you won't have potentially ran a company out of business, of which all of the members of that company, especially if it's an international company, as we have already kind of gotten to know, I think last or second to last episode, it's actually a company that's operating in different countries. So that might be that in other countries that company is still good, right? It's like that branch got shut down, but the company is still good generally, right? Or even if it's not good and it gets dissolved, like in general, all across the different countries and lordships and whatnot, there's still the problem. All of these members that now don't have a work, don't have a place, or possibly even being outcast due to the affiliation they had to the company, they're gonna want revenge. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. You don't want to have a large entity of people that are like numerous to have a grudge against you as a merchant guild, right? because this is gonna have consequences that you can't control and foresee. So it's always the more proper decision, right? The more business-like decision to be like, okay, you're gonna offer something where we both win, right? We still get what we want, and you get partially what you want, right? You can make a profit. You didn't know about this thing before anyway. You were like trying to make a profit, and you were about to gain a very huge profit, but now you're getting just a big profit. We get more than that, but we both win. Going in there being like, okay, because then it's business, and both companies will be like, all right, we're not destroyed, you're not destroyed, it's fine, right? I don't like you, right? We're rivals and whatnot, and you're kind of being a little bit shady with your methods, but either way, it's business, and we'll leave that under the table, right? We're not gonna bring that up again. Maybe we'll bring it up in individual negotiations, right? If we can get a handle on things, right? You try underhanded, whatever, right? There's always an angle that you can take. But either way, that will be business as well then, right? Because you're using whatever information you have, doing business, right? There will probably be a little bit of a back and forth. This one company's gonna throw the other one under a bus on a deal, and vice versa. But as long as they don't destroy one another, there's not gonna be any big major grudges. And they can do business as usual without having like a real blood feud on their hands. Yeah. And we're obviously speculating about the kingdom as well, about land, how their situation financially probably is dire. We're having all of these weird, like tilted angles, and then we do have the top-down view as we start to strategize, right? Seeing it from a bigger picture, if you want to, right? Use that metaphorically. Either way, we are deciding on a path which the classical enemy, like, you wouldn't have had to do that, but all right, do what you must. Do what you must. There's certainly like some of these scenes are not that spectacular, but I do like that they're changing the scenery, and whenever they talk about something like in this case, when they talk about their spy networks and the way they can deal with things and how the church is standing in their way, it's always very well done, right? We're displaying the city and the sprawling, like the people going to and fro, and we're getting that sense, right? Among all of these people, there are agents of the trading company. And then he's talking about there's only one wall in our way, and we see a wall, right? It's obviously it's the front of a building, but it's a wall, right? Standing in our view. We don't see anything behind it. And that is the church. And if the church moves, we can't do anything because they have more connections. So we have to do it before that happens. And we do have all of these cool, shady dealings, right? Of like passwords and phrases. We randomly get stopped by somebody on the street, and we're like, hey, that's dangerous. In the meantime, bro is making loose one of the stones that makes up the ground, and letting one of his agents, in this case Lawrence, down into the sewers. And we do have sprawling networks. Lawrence mentions a little bit of like his own knowledge. One thing I really do like about the light novels, that they do that a lot, that it's like, okay, this is how this business works, and this is how people say, or how it's rumored to work on this end. And we get to know the world little by little by Lawrence being like, oh yeah, I remember that church actually has been using digging graves and whatnot as covers to just dig tunnels to certain areas that they can actually get to. Which then the merchant guilds maybe copied from that, and they were like, okay, we can't dig tunnels, but maybe we can use the sewers as our main operation point. Yeah, now we go into the emotional side of the series, actually, and I do really this cold attitude of Holo, and this is a very defining moment of, oh, look at that, look at that, holy shit, that is an image. But yeah, this cold attitude of Holo's, because there's a disconnect between the two of them, right? A disconnect of expectations. When she said, I know you're gonna come for me, she expected him personally to come, right? And barge in there and have some kind of power or whatever. And or march in with an army as he intended first, right? But he wouldn't have been successful with that. He wouldn't have been successful coming in with like a military power or whatever, because nobody would agree. So he had to do it the merchant's way, right? Convince, sell, plan, and strategize, and that is his way. But she's not used to that. She hasn't been traveling with a merchant before, right? She met villagers, she met other people probably on the way. But since she traveled, it's been like hundreds of years. So times have changed significantly, and this whole merchant thing has come only, well, not only recently, but in the form it is now, only recently, with like organizing stuff and building trading companies and networks, and actually letting your social structures, your connections do the work for you. And she's kind of being a little bit haughty about it. This is your share, hurry up, this is for you, I'm gonna go. And you see her being very very cold towards him, and he is taking it. He's like, what's up with her, right? Because this is not how she usually. Look at this shot. This is like the key shot we're seeing here. Her being very haughty, very, very unapproachable. And we do see all the reactions of people to her as a person. Well, now I've seen it all. That's what he's saying, basically. But yeah. And we're actually using this as a double, right? They're dropping them off, but they're also relaying information back to the company so they can act in their best behavior. But now we do have a one-on-one. They're all alone. They have their privacy. And he's expressing his gratitude that she's safe, and we do have that moment of say my name. And she's empathizing. She's a very proud individual, right? And her expectations were betrayed, and she felt probably hurt, right? Insecure when somebody else that is not Lawrence came in here and was like, I'm here to save you. It's interesting how our expectations of a situation can change how we perceive it. Because if I would have expected nothing, right, other than I'm gonna be rescued, and then we had the whole exchange, right, and we're sitting here, it would be like, hey, I'm glad you're safe, and right, and we're all happy. But because she had a certain role expectations of Lawrence as the man, as the male, basically, going in there, being strong, fending her like old school, basically. But he's a merchant, and that is what he can do best. And even though probably his instincts told him similar things, right, because this is something that we can't really shut down. This is something that happens all the time, right? We do have these instincts, boiling anger inside of us, this aggression that we can't let out, because we know in modern societies there's rules, there's certain social norms that put that weight on us to kind of control those things and deal with these things differently. But this is not her world. This is not what she's used to and what she's expecting, and as such she has been humiliated, right? She has been embarrassed because she was emotional. She was she felt bad, she felt insecure, she felt left alone, maybe, right? As if he has abandoned her in a way. But she explains it to him, they talk it out. And then they, right, after she expressed her herself being not happy with how it went, we do make up. We do accept that and move past it. We don't make a big deal out of it, right? And this already shows how close their bond is, how close they are, right? How she also maybe is wise, as she says, because she accepts that, yes, okay, after I'm done with my emotion, yeah, I guess this is how you do it, and the important point is that I'm here, and he recontextualizes that as well. And we do have that little moment when I told them that the thing will get torn off if they touch me, and I'm like, whoa, okay, whoa. It's effective, right? Especially with those fangs. I mean, you gotta know how to articulate yourself, and that's she does, and how to defend yourself, and she does. And she tells him she's sad about this, right? About Yare, and how he's like very surprised, right? First that she actually exists, but at the same time, then he turns it around because he's like, well, you actually exist. That means you were so, we were so reliant on your temperament, right? On you just having a good mood, which is not true. But these are the assumptions we go into, especially if you have a style of attribution that is negatively, right? If you have made a lot of experiences with people who are maybe shrewd or who are just out for themselves, or maybe who have a lot of temperament, right? Who do not control their emotions well and act according to their whims. And then you project that, right, onto this deity that is supposedly kind of controlling your fate in a way, right? Being responsible, right? Because it's easier to put the responsibility for all of these things, the unfortunate things happening to you, onto someone else. Because then you can't blame yourself, and also you maybe can't blame the person who is above you in social standing, who might have done something wrong, right? Or sometimes it's just circumstance, right? Who do you blame for natural catastrophe? Who do you blame for natural catastrophes, right? It's normally you don't blame anyone, but oftentimes, right, back in the day, you were like the sky, right, or God is angry with us or whatever. And yeah, I mean, I guess it's easier if you attribute something like this to an entity, right? If you can give it a name or a face or whatever, and you can start to hate it. Sometimes bad times are just bad times, but we all have different ways to deal with it. Some people rise to the challenge, right? See it as a challenge. They're like, okay, shit happens, right? And I gotta trudge through it. And if I trudge through it, I'm gonna be stronger after that. And other people are gonna be like, why have the heavens forsaken me? Especially these times where there's still superstition going on and all of that. So, yeah. We don't need you anymore. The church is gonna take care of us, right? Which is also humiliation for her, because back in the day, the church wasn't as big. And this is like the second time that she's been vulnerable with him, right? That we are shown this desire to kind of share yourself with another person, to open up, right? And it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling to be there and right, and talk to somebody and speak your mind. And she confirms that, and he's he's putting it in merchant terms, which is obviously the way he does it. But it's so him, right? It makes him who he is, right? He's dealing with almost everything through him being a merchant, through his merchantness. His way to operate things and process them and whatnot, because this is the best way he can do it, because this is the thing he knows the most. And still, she understands the attempt, and she also understands that this is coming from a place of care, and maybe even she sees some wisdom in that, right? Something that she can take away, where she's like, yeah, that makes sense to me. Maybe it's not 1-to-1, 100% true, but yeah, you're right. And then we have the little souvenir. Yeah, I do love the expressiveness. They do that very well. And he's realizing that, right? I'm pulling back. I'm being like, don't get the wrong idea. And then he's like, you know what? I have to kind of mirror that, because otherwise I'm the weak person now, right? In the situation, in the talk, I'm the one who kind of, right, opened himself up, and now you're like, I didn't mean it like that. But it's banter, right? Because deep down, it's just maybe to hide their embarrassment a little bit, or to kind of cover it over. Because deep down they know that that closeness that's not going away, and it exists, and it's mutual. Yeah, she wasn't that whimsical all the time. And I mean, she was partially, right? But not in all of these moments. I do really like it. I do appreciate it. Like a lot of shows could use a little bit more cuteness. And we're down in the sewers. She has her thing hidden now. To probably not immediately get detected, right? If there's something. And again, we do have that. She's going in with like the sincerity. And then she's poking, right? She's poking, but she's also flirting. And his reaction is appreciation, but embarrassment. Not really knowing how to deal with it, and then just moving on and smiling to himself, which, right, he makes peace with that. He's like, that's fine, right? I take it as it is. I'm not gonna be flustered by it. I mean, he is a little bit, but then he's making his way into that, getting used to it. And 𝔸𝕬𝕤 is in trouble. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. That was Spice and Wolf. Episode 5. A great episode all in all. I did really appreciate I really liked it. I think I'm gonna end this with like just a tiny reading. I think this is like the excerpt that we have in the still volume 1 by the way. Oh, it's kind of shiny. Still volume 1 by the way. Marhite, that was his name. Marhite. That's the guild chief. I don't know how long I'm gonna read that. I'm just gonna read a little bit into it and then just randomly stop at some point. But I like, I put down 2 excerpts here. One of the excerpts is basically them strategizing about what to do about all of this, right? And the second excerpt is actually our holo to Lawrence moment, the say my name moment, right? We do represent both of the, in my opinion, most fascinating and also most enjoyable parts about this light novel, which is on the one hand the whole merchant stuff and dealing with that and strategizing and trade, right? And then on the other hand, we do have the whole emotional side of things, right? The bonds, the closeness. Marhite was everything one would expect from a trader who'd open a branch in a foreign land. Though initially shocked by Lawrence's revelation, he soon calmed himself and began to think the situation through. He uttered not so much as a single word of blame for Holo, who'd been captured, or Lawrence, who'd made his escape. He was entirely focused on protecting the interests of the Malone Company and extracting any available profit from the situation. There's no doubting the threat implied by this letter. They wish you, Mr. Lawrence, to know that if you don't want your partner given up to the church, you must stay inside and not interfere. They must want us to keep out of their way until their plan for the 20 silver is concluded, but that doesn't mean they won't still turn Holo in when they're through. Quite right. Furthermore, we've already invested quite heavily in the coin. Pulling out now means our losses would be huge, because the 20 is guaranteed to depreciate. Oh, I think I've never said depreciate. In such a situation, there was essentially no choice at all. They could sit and wait ruin, or they could strike. The former was hardly an option. I suppose this means we have no choice but to strike first, said Lawrence. Mai took a deep breath and nodded. However, merely rescuing your companion wouldn't be enough. Even if we hide her here, once the church gets involved, we'll have no choice but to roll over and let them have their way. She can't hide as long as she's in the city. What if you flee the city entirely? It's Great Plain as far as the eye can see, and even if you reached another city, there's a chance you could be extradited. Then there'd be no hope for you at all. They were cornered. Even meek compliance with the media company's demands would probably still result in Holo being delivered to the church. There was no reason for them to avoid ruining a foreign company. In fact, the fewer competitors they had, the better. Yet striking first carried with it a host of difficulties. No, difficult was the wrong word. Every possibility available to them was in the height of recklessness. Is there nothing we can do? Mused Marhyde, as if talking to himself. At this rate we won't even be able to avoid unfounded accusations, to say nothing of actually making a profit. Lawrence felt as if he were sitting on a carpet of needles as he listened to Marhyde speak, but he bowed his head and listened. He would do whatever it took to bring about a favorable result. Merchants lacked the pride of knights or nobility. They were prepared to lick a stranger's boots if it meant coming out ahead. So Lawrence did not hear sarcasm or scorn in Marhyde's words, simply analysis. He had clearly summarized the situation they now faced. You're saying we need some kind of card we can play against them. You could put it that way, but even if we invest more capital, it's meager compared with what they stand to gain from Trenny silver. So the problem can't be solved with money. We could report the abduction of your companion to the church, but that would cause problems for you, and you might even deliver an unfavorable testimony about our company. That is quite possible. There was no point in lying, so Lawrence told the truth. He simply couldn't cut Holo loose, but if he did, unquestionably that would solve the problem. Marhyde was undoubtedly aware of that fact. If it came down to it, he would certainly try to persuade Lawrence to take that option, though unsuccessfully. Lawrence knew he would choose death with Holo first, though naturally he hoped he wouldn't have to. This left him no alternative but to come up with some kind of plan to alter this indefensible position. All I can think of, Lawrence interjected, is to finish negotiating the silver Trenny deal and use the resulting profit as a trump card. Marhyde's eyes went wide at Lawrence's proposal. He didn't want to lose the Malone's company profit, that almost magical return made possible by exploiting a depreciating currency, any more than Lawrence wanted to lose Holo. Such opportunities came around only once in a great while. That was what made Lawrence's proposed trump card so potent. If it came down to it, the Medio Company would happily turn Holo over, rather than lose the profit. Still, or perhaps because of that, Marhyde covered his eyes in worry. Losing that opportunity would be like losing a child. This magical trading partner could bring them staggering gains. That partner was none other than the king of the kingdom of Trenny. This great gain that can be extracted from Trenny silver is securing special privileges from the king. According to our research, the finances of the royal family are in decline. In other words, if this deal succeeds, we'll have a substantial favor with the royal family. Abandoning that. Abandoning it for my companion makes no sense at all, said Lawrence. Are you suggesting they purchase it from us? Lawrence nodded. He had heard of deals of the scale before, but he had never been involved in one. He had no assurances that it could actually be done, but his long experience as a merchant suggested that it could. If it comes down to a choice between destroying the Malone Company or obtaining special privileges from the king, perhaps we could simply have them pay the equivalent value. Lawrence was speaking off the top of his head, but it seemed plausible. Alright, I'm gonna end it here, and we're gonna jump ahead. I'm gonna jump ahead to, I think, almost the exact message. Right. He did as Hollis' right. Look at that picture here. Right. Looking from above. He did as Hollow suggested and stepped aside, waiting for her to descend. Yet what filled his heart was not satisfaction at seeing her face, but rather disappointment at missing her choiceful voice. Of course, he knew it was nothing more than wishful thinking, and said nothing, but once Hollow descended and looked up to receive a bundle from above, paying him not the slightest heed, the discontent in his heart grew stronger. What are you daydreaming about? Here, this is for you. Take it and let's go. Lawrence held the bundle that was shoved at him and headed down the tunnel as if pushed. Something jingled in the bungle. They must have stolen some valuables to give the appearance of thieves. Soon another person descended from the trapdoor whereupon it shut. The tunnel was completely dark again. That was the signal to move. Lawrence said nothing to Holo and began walking. They would turn right at the end of the passage, feeling along the left-hand wall until reaching its end. They would then climb out of the tunnel and into the carriage that awaited them there to be taken to another underground passage. Walking the tunnel wordlessly, they finally reached their destination. Lawrence climbed the ladder that had been prepared and knocked 3 times against the ceiling. If the escort failed to meet the rendezvous, they would have to take a different route. Just as the possibility crossed Lawrence's mind, a hole opened in the ceiling, and immediately above, it sat the carriage. After confirming each other's identities with an exchange of 𝔸𝕓𝕠𝕦𝕥 and 𝗠𝘂𝘀𝕠𝕦, Lawrence crawled up into the carriage. Alright, when we jump a little bit. The almost frightening efficiency was due to the daily execution and refinement of plans and counterplans. Once the employee replaced the carriage floorboards, he said a quick "good luck to you" and took Lawrence and Holo's bundles before exiting the cart. With the employee's signals, the driver started the carriage moving. So far, everything was going according to plan. Everything except for Holo's reaction, that is. "I'm glad you're right," was all Lawrence could manage. He could say no more to Holo, who sat opposite of him, unfolding a strip of cloth that had been around her neck in an attempt to cover her ears. She only replied after finishing a few adjustments to the fit of her makeshift hood. "It's good that I'm alright, is it?" Lawrence wanted to say yes, but the words caught in his throat. Holo was glaring at him as if she were about to bite his head off. Perhaps she wasn't well. "Say my name then." If she could shout like that, she wasn't in the condition Lawrence feared. Still, her vehemence made her seem twice her normal size, and he flinched at it. Holo? Holo the Wise Wolf. It sounded almost like a threatening growl, but Lawrence had no idea what she was angry about. She wanted an apology. He was ready to apologize 100 times over. He'd been a decoy for him after all. Or had something happened to her that she couldn't say? "I can remember every single person that's ever shamed me in my life, and now I must add another name to that list. Yours." Something had happened to her. Still, her anger seemed different from the manner of girls he'd seen in villages that had been taken by thugs or brigands. If he said something foolish, it would only be throwing oil on the fire of her rage. Thus the silence grew longer, and perhaps the silence itself began to irk her because she rose from her seat and closed in on Lawrence. Her white, clenched fist trembled. There was nowhere for Lawrence to run. Holo stood directly in front of him. Their heads were at the same height, which lent Holo's level gaze an incredibly penetrating quality. She opened her small fists and grabbed the chest of Lawrence's shirt. Her strength matched her appearance. Lawrence hadn't imagined her grip would be so weak. Again, he noticed how long her eyelashes were. "You told me, didn't you? You told me you'd come for me." Lawrence nodded. "And I utterly believed that you would come. Just thinking about it is infuriating." Just then, Lawrence came to a sharp realization as if waking from a dream. "You're a man, aren't you? You should have been in front fighting tooth and nail, but you were in that hole in the ground, and you let me make a fool of myself." "But you're unhurt, right?" asked Lawrence, interrupting her. Holo sneered at him, displeased. She hesitated for some time before finally nodding, as if forced to drink something unpleasant. Holo had probably been blindfolded. She may have mistaken whoever came to her aid for Lawrence and said something meant for him alone. That was probably why she felt and blamed him for such needless shame. The realization made Lawrence happy. He knew that if he'd been the one to rescue her, she would have shown the expression he longed to see. It's very interesting, right? We do have a lot more exposition, of course. We do have a lot more understanding what's going on inside the heads of our characters. What they're thinking, what they're feeling, right? What they're assuming, what they're expecting, how they behave exactly. I mean, obviously that's shown in the art, and I think it's done relatively well so far. right? The little things, the little expressions, the movements. They express a lot, and I think that the anime, especially anime in general, but this anime, does a good job of doing that. The medium lends itself to that. Yeah. If you're interested, go check the book out, right? Go buy the light novel. It's, like I said it before, but it's 17 volumes. It's really great. Anyway, this was my little extra. This has been Spice and Wolf, episode 5. I hope I'll see you maybe next week, maybe the week after that. We'll see how I can actually do that, because I'm moving this week. I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you live, and